Hey everyone, welcome back to 996 The Howl. I wrote an email to Hockey Reference expressing my displeasure of how they categorize their players. Sometimes they list them as a centerman like Clayton Keller. Not a centerman. Why do they have him as a centerman? So I missed two centermen from last video because Hockey Reference decided to primarily put them as wingers. I don't know why you would think Johan Larsson and Jay Beagle are wingers, but that's what it shows. So we got to rank these two last centermen. Now, don't fret. Their ranking doesn't really mean this is how they performed in their position. It's more the ranking of being a Coyote overall. So it shouldn't matter. Johan Larsson goes to B. Worked really well with Phil Kessel. No one knows why. I thought Kessel and Larsson were a really good duo. I think Larsson, a very good fourth, third line defensive centerman whose job was to be defensively reliable, grab pucks from the defensive zone, and just pass it to Kessel, who brings down the board on the wing for a nice snapshot. We'll talk about Kessel later. Then finally, for the last centerman, Jay Beagle, going to put him in the C tier. Could have been F. However, he did have that scrum with Zegras and the Anaheim Ducks late into that season 2 years ago. I was at that game. A lot of people in the hockey world did not like that. I thought it was pretty good. And so I guess a C just for that. So we'll start with wingers. And it always starts like the first 4 or 5 players are always A or S tier. That shows, they were really good exactly a decade ago. And then it was a train wreck. But to be honest, grabbing all these wingers, it wasn't as bad as a centerman. Like not a lot of these players are actually nightmare fuel, as I said last video. So Shane Doan, that's an S tier, face of the franchise, probably the best winger we've had, a great humanitarian, longtime captain. Still haven't found a captain to step into his shoes. It was unfortunate that he had to leave the organization a couple months ago to progress his managerial hockey career. Good luck in the Toronto market and good luck with Toronto. I honestly mean that. It's a great place for him to progress his career and further establish himself on the business side of the hockey world. We'll go to Radim Verbata, another S tier. A great sniper. He had 3 tours with the Coyotes mixed in there with Chicago. He had 18 games with Tampa Bay. I had no idea he played for Tampa Bay. And then he stayed in Vancouver for like 2 seasons and then came back to Arizona. A great scorer, great shootout guy as well, great breakaway scorer as well. That forehand, backhand move that Tyson Nash loves calling the Radim Verbata. A little bit outdated now. I don't think he'll use that anymore. But Verbata, S tier. Love that guy. Even in the AHL, NHL hockey games, really good in those games. Mikkel Bodker, oh man. He never scored 20 goals. I couldn't believe that when I looked at his stats. I think the highest was 19, so obviously almost 20 goals there. But yeah, never hit 20 goals. And he demanded such a big contract. The way he left the organization, he was traded for another player here. His career just nosedived after the Coyotes going to Colorado, San Jose, and Ottawa. Near the end of his tenure with the Coyotes, all he would do was grab the puck and just keep circling the zone and doing nothing with the puck. It was kind of getting annoying. I'm going to put him in the B tier. I know he was big in those 2012 playoffs. I know a lot of people used to love him. He was like that transitional player going into the more speed direction. But once the NHL really was getting and attracting speedy, actual speed players, Bodker just didn't fit. Maybe he got a bit too old, too late in his prime when the NHL actually did go the speed direction. But he was one of those starters of being a younger, smaller speedster. So I think a lot of people would have him A, but the way he left his career with the Coyotes, going to put him in B tier. Biz Nasty. Oh man, 21 points in 187 games played with the Coyotes. Just a pure fighter, pure grinder, now a personality. Love him on TNT. Give him an A tier for Biz Nasty. I believe he scored on Carey Price as a Coyote. Someone needs to fact check me on that. Martin Erat. We're going to go to Erat. I'm going to go to Korpikoski first. The Finnish torpedo. Another really fast player in an era that wasn't really all speed. It was still in that era of we want big, slow muscle men. For whatever reason, in that awkward transitional phase, I'm sure if he was a younger guy who was playing in the NHL, maybe started playing the NHL 5 years ago, he would have had a better career. But he had 6 seasons with the Coyotes, 400 games played. That's a lot. Went to Dallas, Edmonton, Columbus, and then his career just died off after that. Give him a B tier. He was really fast in the EA NHL games as well. Then we'll go to Martin Erat, a trade deadline acquisition. Only played 1 season for the Coyotes, and that was the last season of his NHL career. A lot of these wingers, their last season in their NHL career was with Arizona Coyotes, which should say something. It was a place to die for a really long period of time before we got to the current core of Coyotes. But Martin Erat, going to give him a C tier. Don Maloney was so happy we acquired him at the trade deadline. Oh, he's going to make us so good. This is the type of player I wanted my whole tenure of my GM for the Coyotes, and then played 1 season and then called it a career. I don't know how Don Maloney thought Martin Erat was going to change the direction of the Coyotes when he retires exactly a year later. David Moss, he used to play on Calgary. I liked him on Calgary. And then he moved to the Coyotes. I think he was playing really well in the tank year. There was a couple people that were upset that he kept scoring and playing well during the McDavid tank year. I liked him. I'll give him a B as well. Who do we got here? Lucas Lesio, an F tier. Didn't play a lot with the Coyotes, and his dad was my high school gym teacher. Fun fact for that. Schwartz, 35 games played, F tier. Ty McGinn, we have actually 2 McGinns on this list. How many games did he play? 18 games played. That's F tier. I could barely recognize these people from their faces. Crombeen, I remember him as a grinder, 4th line guy. I think I remember him more as being a Tampa Bay Lightning player. But that's going to be an F tier. 58 games played with the Coyotes. Again, his last season in his career in the NHL was with the Coyotes. A lot of players like that. Cunningham, but obviously a very emotional story here, so we'll just give him a B. Played with the Coyotes, 29 games played, but was playing with Tucson after his career with the Coyotes, and then unfortunately had a cardiac arrest in the pregame skate. Had to amputate a part of his leg. He stuck around the organization for a bit and then moved on somewhere else, maybe with Boston. I'm not too sure. We'll give him a B tier. It's a tough story. Plotnikov, 13 games played with the Coyotes. Never played hockey again after the Coyotes. F tier. John Scott, huge debacle when he was with the Coyotes. I think it was an all-star voting. And it was a meme around the internet where everyone got John Scott, who's like a 4th line grinder. They voted him into the All-Star game. And I think Gary Bettman was trying to put the kibosh to that. And then he was traded to the Coyotes so he couldn't make the All-Star game. But then he made the All-Star game anyways or something like that. And then he got the MVP of the All-Star game because he scored like a crazy goal. That's a crazy story. We'll put him C tier for that. Only played 11 games for the Coyotes. Who is this? Seacash? Yuri Seacash? That's enough. Alex Tanguay, A tier. I couldn't believe the Coyotes got Alex Tanguay. Obviously, the tail end of his career, but he actually had 13 points in 18 games played with the Coyotes. He came to the Coyotes and was producing a lot. He was just a veteran NHLer at the time. I loved him on the Avalanche, for the Calgary Flames as well. He was a sick NHL player. I loved him. And the fact that he came to my team and played well, it was awesome to see. I'll never forget that. And really glad Alex Tanguay was part of this organization, albeit very, very briefly. Then we gotta go with the S tier here. The last player I got as a name on my jersey, Max Domi, loved him. I love that we drafted him. Loved his dad when he played for the Leafs. A bit of a shit disturber. So was Max Domi. Loved him on the Coyotes. I was very sad when we traded him for Galchenyuk. Couldn't say enough good things about Domi. A feisty, prick on the ice, but he could score a lot of goals. The first season for the Montreal Canadiens, he performed really well, and I was just so upset that we traded him. But then his career's been going a bit sideways here and there, not finding a permanent home still. Just recently signed a 1-year contract with the Leafs. I hope he stays with the Leafs forever. I really hope he signs a long-term contract with the Leafs after this season. Duclair, his teammate, his buddy, going to give that an A tier. The killer Ds, the double Ds. The reason why I give him an A tier is, he was in a doghouse a lot. Rick Tocchet really didn't see eye to eye with him. He spent time with the Tucson Roadrunners. So a bit turbulent, his career with the Coyotes. And then he got traded to Chicago, spent some time in Ottawa and Columbus. And then when he went to Florida, just blew up. And now is like a really, really good hockey player. But I guess it just couldn't work with the Coyotes. The trade for Panik, which we will talk about later, an underwhelming trade considering who he turned out to be later on. But maybe it was just not a bad match with him and Rick Tocchet. Steve Downey, a player like Ryan White, just a grinding fourth line fighter. Going to give him a C tier. He actually did his job pretty okay. Better than these guys in the F tier. I think there's some controversy with him, but I can't really recall right now. Maybe after his career with the Coyotes, maybe he said some bad words. I don't remember. Then we go to Tikhonov and Plotnikov, F tier. Brock McGinn, 72 games played, 17 points, been in an F tier. He was pretty hyped to be joining the Coyotes. Should have been like a second line winger, then kind of was like a third line winger, and then only got 17 points in 72 games played. Then we'll start to kick off some of the new core that we've been familiar with recently. Christian Fischer, very unfortunate that he's not a Coyote anymore. The fact that he signed with the Red Wings this a couple months ago. Going to give him an A tier. Great locker room guy. He started off his career with the Coyotes strong. I think he scored like 15 goals in that Dave Tippett's last year with the Coyotes. Sure, his on-ice play kind of dipped a bit, sort of turned into a fourth-line player, but we always used to play him on the third line because, we had no one else to play on the third line. If he was still with the Coyotes today, he would be a perfect fourth-line winger, but I guess it just wasn't meant to be. Great friends with Clayton Keller, Nick Schmaltz, Jacob Chikrin, Connor Garland. So I'll give him an A tier for Fisher. Hopefully he comes back to the Coyotes, man. That would be really great. Lawson Krause, S tier. Big, huge power forward. Probably the best power forward here, I would say. Big body, could move. He unlocked his scoring touch under Andre Tourigny, scoring back-to-back 20 goals, pretty sure. Maybe scored 19 and like 22. Played really well with Michelli last year. He signed a long-term contract of 4 or 5 years. Part of the core of the Coyotes. Great penalty killer as well. Can't say enough good things about Lawson Krause, and hopefully he stays a Coyote for a very long time. Who's the we'll do Juris because that's an easy F tier. Brendan Perlini. Oh man, memories. He was so fast on like a straight line. I thought he would have a long career with the Coyotes and the NHL, even that as well. But unfortunately, was traded. Well, fortunately, was traded for Nick Schmaltz. That was a great trade along with Dylan Strome, but couldn't find his footing after that. Went to Chicago, Detroit, Edmonton. The reason why I liked him as a player was his ability to just go straight north with speed and then take a nice wrist shot. He had a nice wrist shot as well. He just couldn't really play in the offensive zone and Wasn't really good with offensive systems, wasn't good defensively. Just really his awareness offensively and defensively was not up to par, but his straight line speed, and he had a wicked shot as well. Brendan Perlini did. Clayton Keller, S tier, tied the franchise record for points in his season at 86 last season. The most skilled player on this list, and maybe all rankings put together. Clayton Keller, should be our captain next season. They still haven't announced it. If they do go with a captain, can't say enough good things about him. He loves Arizona. So friendly with teammates and former teammates. You still see him out there in the offseason hanging around Chychrun, Schmaltz, Garland, Fisher. A lot of guys like him. He's really good at golf because he spent a lot of time golfing. Archibald, gonna give him a C tier. Another one of those small speedster guys who played down in your lineup. But, he did play 100 games for the Coyotes, if you can believe it. Other than that, not much to say about him, but I still think he's better than these crop of players. Richard Panik, go with the C tier. Sure, he had some good games here and there, but not really sure what he provided for the Coyotes. Maybe some grit on the boards, but wasn't a fighter, was a big body guy, but didn't lay out people. He had a nice scoring touch, but trading Duclair for Panik and then seeing what Duclair turned into after a couple of years. Kind of a lopsided trade there. Michael Bunting, I'll give him a B tier. His career with the Coyotes was short-lived. Played about, he kept being called up from the Tucson Roadrunners a lot. Never really played a full season for the Coyotes. The last season he did play for the Coyotes in that shortened 2021 season. He had 10 goals in 21 games played. All this guy was doing was scoring. It was literally unbelievable how much he was scoring. He got a hat trick too in one of those games. And then he moved on. He signed a contract with Toronto. I would have liked the Coyotes to keep him, but obviously Bill Armstrong, when he came in, wanted to tank, and you can't risk a guy scoring 10 goals in 20 games to be a tanker. Alex Galchenyuk, C tier. We traded my favorite player for him. Only played one season for the Coyotes, 2 seasons for the Coyotes, but in different tours, 2 tours. When we traded Domi for Galchenyuk, he only played 1 season and then was traded to Pittsburgh for Kessel, and then Galchenyuk came back. Didn't score 20 goals. He scored 19 goals in that first season with the Coyotes, even though John Shaika said, we're getting a 30-goal scorer, and then a year later trades him. Nick Schmaltz, going to give that an S tier. The way he compliments Keller is amazing. Everything about him is really good. To be honest, I was thinking about putting him in the A tier just due to his injuries, but that'd be a bit too harsh. And I feel like him and Rick Tocchet didn't really mesh well either, just like Duclair. But, recently Schmaltz has really impressed me, and I really hope he lives out the contract with the rest of his contract with the Coyotes. I hope he doesn't get traded. I think there's 2 years left on that contract. And, if him and Keller could keep that magic, and then our other lines now have some offensive threat, it could be a recipe for great success. Connor Garland, an S tier. I really don't know what happened. Like him and Dvorak, I don't know what happened when they were traded. Like Garland to me was like a great player to watch, a great player to have on your team, a pure motor spirit, just never stopped working, hustled every shift. Small stature guy, but would get in your face. Another prick on the ice, just like Max Domi. Then he goes to Vancouver. Haven't heard much from him. Doesn't really play with that edge anymore, that style. He said when he got traded, he would have given his heart out for the organization, and I believe that. It was a hard trade. It was a really good trade as well. We got Gunther for it, but I wished in some alternate universe he was still a Coyote. We don't even have room for him if he wants to come back. But I loved watching him play. He scored a goal by getting a puck off his face as well. Nothing but great things to say about Connor Garland, to be honest. Michael Grabner, going to give him an A tier. The short-handed king, the speedster. Another one of those guys like Korpikoski, where he was a really fast player in an age where speed wasn't the name of the game yet. I feel like if he was younger, maybe entered just like what I said with Korpikoski, entered the league a bit later in the life of the NHL, he would have had a much better career because he was so fast, so many breakaways. He wouldn't score on a lot of them, but he had a lot of breakaway chances just generated from his own speed. Taylor Hall, this is a fever dream, man. It is a fever. This is a one player. I've done every single Coyotes player in the past decade, every position. This is just a fever dream. The fact that Taylor Hall played for the Coyotes, and he played really well. 35 games played, 27 points in the playoffs, 6 points in 9 games. He looked so out of place on the Coyotes. Even Clayton Keller, like those were during Clayton Keller's down years with Rick Tocchet. Taylor Hall looked like the best player on the team, was trying to do everything himself. He was so fast, so skilled, so flashy. It sucks that I barely remember it. It was so short-lived due to, we got him in December and then the season paused in early March. And then he played in the bubble and then left. So, yeah, a very feverish dream. Phil Kessel, I'm going to put him in the B tier. I know a lot of people would put him in A. He's a big meme. But, man, I really didn't want him. First of all, I didn't want him, even though there were so many rumors that we were going to acquire him. And then we acquired him. And then his first season was really rough. I agree the next 2 seasons were better. He scored 20 goals his second season. And then he had 52 points in his third and last season. Then he won a cup again with Vegas last year by sitting in the press box eating hot dogs. Drake Kajula, F. Dryden Hunt, F. This is bad. This is like the Bill Armstrong, I need to sign cheap players because my owner won't give me money. Fashing, F. Peterson, F. Ooh, the biggest F we've had. Unique, yeah, still a C tier. We'll see. He's still in negotiations for a contract with the Coyotes. I don't think it's going anywhere. I actually think he'll never play with the Coyotes again. The Coyotes are at 49 contracts out of 50. The negotiations haven't been going well. He wants too much money. I don't even know why he thinks he demands over $1 million. He's done nothing yet at the NHL level. I agree, Bill Armstrong is playing hardball with him, but again, Unique has nothing to stand on. I don't know why he thinks he's above signing a league minimum 2-way contract, because that's exactly the type of player he is right now. Yaskin, he got injured like immediately when they acquired him in Audrey Turney's first year. This is the start of those anchor players again. Yaskin, Erickson, Roussel, give a C. I didn't like Erickson. Honestly, before Cassian, Erickson was one of the worst Coyotes I've ever had to watch. And then now Cassian is the worst Coyote I ever had to watch. Close. Brett Ritchie is close. I barely remember him. And it was like a couple weeks ago he was on the team. Andrew Ladd, C tier. Yeah, not much to say about Ladd. I thought he played okay, much better than Louis Eriksson. And the fact that his career was literally ending in New York and then got one more chance to play one more season with the Coyotes, that's a pretty feel-good story. Matthias Michelli, going to give him an A tier. Just exploded last season, a huge breakout season last year. One of the best rookies in the league, led the rookies in points per game. Great, insane, excellent, exceptional playmaker. Him, Krause, and Bukestad, or him, Krause, and McBain worked so well. A magician on the ice with the puck. Just wish he would shoot a bit more, and hopefully he could reproduce that season he had last year, and it's not just a flash in the pan. I'm really worried that it was a flash in the pan, but I really hope I'm wrong about Michelli. Then we got Nick Ritchie, B tier. Like Kessel, a big memer. He would score a lot for the Coyotes, and then he kind of ghosted and died out died out very quickly. But elite sniper Nick Ritchie, that's a B tier. Liam O'Brien, C tier, a fighter, grinder, doesn't do much else. Just a tad better than Zach Cassian. I like his personality way more than Zach Cassian, and at least he's happy to play for the Coyotes, and he dresses really well as well. Gunther, with his career, the Coyotes, it's only been about 33 games. I really think this upcoming season, he should be on the second line. PHNX has him on the fourth line consistently. I don't know why. I'll put him in the B. I know he's going to be an A tier player, an S tier, but just for now, I haven't seen much from him. A bit underwhelmed with his season last year, and then he got sent down to the juniors where he played really well. Won gold for Team Canada, won the gold medal, scored the golden goal as well. Took his Seattle Thunderbirds to the Memorial Cup, but this is a Coyotes ranking. And just for now, it's a B tier. I know a lot of people put him in A. Carconi. A lot of people would put him in A as well. I'll put him in B. Very teetering to C tier. Really good in the American Hockey League. I just don't see it in the NHL whenever it gets called up. And then he signed a one-way contract with the Coyotes very early in the offseason. And I was like, okay, there's a roster spot for him. And then we got all those acquisitions and Zucker. We brought Bukestad back. Gunther's going to be on the team. Cooley. I don't even know where Carconi fits anymore, if he fits. But he should battle for a spot on the roster at training camp. And he better make it out of the training camp, because if not, he will have to go through waivers to go back to the Tucson Roadrunners because of the one-way contract and because he is not waivers exempt. One-way contract doesn't mean you're exempt or not exempt. It means you're getting paid NHL money in the AHL. No matter where you play, you're getting paid that money. I fumbled that hard. Kellerman, C tier. I hope he would have played more last season. I liked him way better than Cassian on the fourth line. I feel like he brings a lot of energy. I think he'll be on the Tucson Roadrunners this upcoming season. But if there's injuries down the fourth line, Kellerman would be the guy to bring up. And then Brett Ritchie would be F tier. So that's it. I did every single Coyote who's played at least 10 games played in the past decade. It's over. I might do a big bracket of just S and A tier players and see who is the greatest Coyote in the past decade. I might do that. I'll see if it's feasible technically, or if I have to draw it on the whiteboard. That would be a nightmare. So that's it for me. Thanks for watching. Thank you for bearing through this tier list string of videos. I hope you enjoyed it. I'm sure you guys disagreed with some things. I'm sorry about those centermen miscommunications with Larson, Beagle. Maybe some centermen in my centerman video weren't actually centermen, but it doesn't matter. Their ranking would have been the same if they're in this winger tier. So thank you for watching. If you like to see, spread the word. And as always, thank you for your support.